Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're learning English, well, you probably know that feeling. The one where you have this really clear idea in your head.
But getting it out is the problem.
Exactly. The thought is perfect, but your vocabulary toolbox, it just feels, well, too small. You can't find the right word.
Yeah, that feeling of being sort of linguistically trapped, it's pretty universal for learners, I think. It's not just about missing a word. It's about missing that precise word, the one that really nails what you mean.
Right. It's the difference between just getting by in English and actually sounding, confident, expressive.
And that's the gap we want to help close today.
That's absolutely the mission. We are diving deep into a kind of blueprint for closing that gap. We're not talking about abstract academic stuff here. We've pulled together 15 really practical, actionable methods.
Proven strategies, actually.
Yeah, proven methods. The goal is that you, listening right now, walk away knowing exactly how to build that vocabulary you need for speaking with confidence, for writing persuasively, and we've looked at a great range of techniques. We're moving beyond just, memorizing lists of words. This is about real application, high retention. So let's start where all good learning starts. Habits. Consistent daily habits make sense. Let's get into those fundamentals, the things you need to do every day to really make new words stick. Okay, foundational habit number 1, and this one sounds almost too simple, maybe reading every single day. Why is just reading so much more powerful than, say, drilling flashcards?
Well, it really comes down to context. Your brain is just wired for it. When you read, you don't just see a word like meticulous floating alone. You see it used.
Okay.
You see it describing a plan or maybe a person's work ethic. It's embedded in a story, an argument. That's exactly. It's learning the usage, the nuance, almost automatically. And later, when you want to use that word, you don't just recall a definition. You recall the situation, the feel of how it was used. That's much better training for actually speaking or writing. It mimics how fluency works.
Oh, but if someone's just starting out, maybe reading a whole novel in English feels, daunting. What's the practical first step?
Start small.
Yeah.
Definitely. And this is crucial. Read things you actually like, things you're genuinely interested in.
Like what?
Short news articles in English, blogs about your hobbies, self-improvement, cooking, tech, whatever. There's good research showing that when you read stuff you're already curious about, your brain is way more engaged.
Ah, so the interest itself helps the learning.
Massively. That heightened brain activity, driven by genuine interest, not just obligation. It basically tells your brain, hey, the vocabulary is important. It makes the words stick much better than forcing yourself through something dry. It almost feels effortless. Okay, so reading provides the context, the discovery. But finding the word is just step 1, right? You mentioned making it stick. That brings us to habit number 2, the personal vocabulary notebook. Yes, absolutely essential. This is the bridge. You find a great new word while reading, fantastic. But you can't just hope you'll remember it. That's not reliable. You need a system, a dedicated place, physical notebook, digital app, doesn't matter, to capture it right away.
And it's not just a random list of words, is it? The approach we're looking at has 3 specific things you need to include for each word to really lock it in. Let's say I just found a new word. What do I need to write down?
Okay, 3 key things. First, the meaning. And this is important, define it in simple English. Your own words, if possible, not some complicated dictionary definition.
Okay, simple meaning. Got it.
Second, a short sentence showing how it's used. That context piece again. This forces you to think about its grammar, its partners.
Sentence example, right?
And third, some kind of visual cue.
Yeah.
Be a little doodle, an emoji, anything that creates a mental picture. It leverages visual memory, which is incredibly powerful for many people. Let's make this concrete. Say I come across the word resilient. Okay, first step, meaning able to recover quickly from problems. Simple enough. Now, you said the sentence is really important, maybe more than the definition. In many ways, yes. If you only have time for one extra step, make it the sentence. The definition is just passive knowledge. The sentence is active usage. So for resilient, you'd write something like, she's really resilient, she never gives up, even after failing 3 times. See? That forces you to think, okay, it's an adjective, it describes a person.
To make you process it more deeply.
Exactly. Then maybe you add that visual cue, like a little drawing of a spring bouncing back after being squashed. Boom. Instantly more memorable.
I like that. Okay, so we found the word in context. We've actively processed it in our notebook. Logically, habit 3 must be about actually using it, right? Moving it out of the notebook and into the real world.
Precisely. Using new words in daily conversation. This is the step that transfers knowledge from that fragile short-term memory to robust long-term memory. It's often the hardest part for learners, though.
Why is that? Fear of making mistakes.
Partly, yeah, but also it's just easy to let words sit passively in your notes. If you don't retrieve them, if you don't actually produce them under the slight pressure of a real conversation or email, your brain eventually thinks, okay, guess this wasn't important, and lets it fade.
There's a principle mentioned here, the immediate action rule. What does that mean in practice?
It means don't wait. You learn a new word, maybe from your reading or your notebook review. Actively try to use it in your very next conversation or piece of writing. It doesn't have to be profound.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you just learned optimistic. Don't file it away for a week. Look for the first chance. Maybe you say, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about my English progress this week. Or, I'm optimistic the weather will clear up. Just use it.
And that sends a signal to your brain, a strong signal. Hey, this word is useful. File it somewhere permanent. And there is that little bit of maybe slight anxiety when you use a brand new word, isn't there? Thinking, did I use it right?
Yes. And that little bit of stress, that slightly heightened emotional state, actually helps cement the memory. It makes the moment more significant. So don't shy away from that feeling. It means you're learning effectively. These 3 habits together, daily reading, systematic notebooking, immediate usage, they build that solid foundation.
Okay, foundation built. Daily reading, notebook, using the words. But like you said, learning 1 word a day is great, but maybe a bit slow if you want to accelerate. So section 2 is about techniques that kind of multiply your efforts, right? Leveraging how the brain connects things. Method 4 is learning words in context, not alone thinking in chunks.
Yeah, this really pushes back against that old school method of just memorizing lists of unrelated words, trying to learn resilient just by itself as a definition. It's inefficient because you still don't really know how to deploy it smoothly in a sentence. It lacks anchors.
This is where collocations come in, isn't it? Those words that just naturally hang out together.
Exactly, that's the term for it. Collocations are just words that native speakers naturally pair up. We don't say strong rain, we say heavy rain or driving rain. We often say maybe a decision, but sometimes take a decision, depending on nuance. Learning these chunks, these collocations, means you start thinking more like a native speaker.
You stop translating word by word from your native language.
Precisely. You start processing language in these prefabricated chunks. It's much faster and sounds much more natural. The material uses a fantastic example for this. The super simple word, run. If you just learn run means move fast on your feet, wow, you're missing almost everything.
Oh, absolutely. Run is a perfect example of a vocabulary multiplier if you learn it in chunks. Think about these. Run a business. Completely different meaning. Manage, operate.
Right.
Run away. That's a phrasal verb meaning flee or escape.
Okay.
Run out of time. Another phrasal verb meaning to exhaust your supply of time. 3 totally different concepts, all using run, but they function as single units in conversation. You haven't learned 1 word. You've learned 3 high-frequency phrases covering management, movement, and time limits.
So when you're reading and you find a new word, you shouldn't just highlight that word. You should grab the whole phrase it's sitting in. Ideally, yes. If you see the verb take, don't just note take. Note take precautions, or take ownership, or take something seriously. Learning these chunks build your fluency and your vocabulary at the same time. It's way more efficient than just learning single words and then trying to figure out the grammar later. That efficiency idea continues right into Method 5. Learning word families. This sounds like a serious shortcut. It really is. It's like getting a master key for a whole section of the dictionary. Once you understand a base word, you can often unlock related words, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, just by recognizing common prefixes and suffixes. It's about understanding the morphology, the structure of words.
What's the example used in the guide?
It uses the base word create. Okay, that's the verb. Simple enough. But if you understand word families, you instantly get access to creation. That's the noun, the act, or result of creating.
Okay.
Creative, that's the adjective describing something or someone with the quality of creating. Creativity, the abstract noun, the ability or quality itself. And creator, the person who does the creating.
Wow. So learn 1 root, potentially get 4 or 5 words for the price of 1.
Exactly. You invested the effort in create, and suddenly you have a whole related vocabulary set just by understanding how suffixes like catamation, prosive, catamati, and or work in English.
It's about spotting the patterns, isn't it? Once you see that catamation often makes a noun or has makes an adjective, the language starts to feel less random, more predictable.
It absolutely builds confidence. You can start making educated guesses about words you haven't even officially learned yet, just based on their structure.
And speaking of multiplying and making language richer, Method 6 is all about synonyms and antonyms, using them to add color to your speech.
Yes, this is a huge step up. It's moving from just functional communication to something more nuanced, more expressive, more sophisticated. Instead of just saying something was good or you feel happy.
It stops you from relying on those really common, basic words all the time. Precisely. So the technique is simple. Whenever you learn a new word, actively look up a couple of similar words, synonyms, and a couple of opposite words, antonyms. Let's use the example given. Happy. A word everybody knows. But how does this method expand on it? Okay, so you learn happy. Then you immediately look up synonyms. Maybe joyful, cheerful, delighted, content, and antonyms. Sad, unhappy, miserable, disappointed. And the key isn't just listing them, it's understanding the slight differences in meaning, right? Like, joyful feels deeper than cheerful. Delighted often implies a specific reason.
Exactly. Understanding that gradient of meaning is what gives your language color and precision. Joyful might be for winning the lottery. Cheerful might be someone's general disposition. Delighted might be your reaction to unexpected good news. Using the right one makes your communication much richer.
It moves you away from sounding basic towards sounding more like a proficient, nuanced speaker.
Absolutely. You learn one word, but you actively investigate its neighborhood, and suddenly you have 5 or 6 tools instead of just one for expressing that particular idea or feeling. It's a fantastic multiplier. All right, we've covered building the foundation and using context and connections. Section 3 shifts gears a bit, focusing on immersion and using technology, making learning feel more continuous, maybe even automatic. Method 7 is a classic, watching English movies and TV shows with subtitles. Yeah, this is popular for a reason. It's highly effective because it uses dual coding. You're getting auditory input, hearing the word, the pronunciation, the rhythm, and visual input, seeing the word spelled out at the exact same time.
Engaging 2 senses at once.
Right. It creates a much stronger memory trace than just hearing or just reading alone. You connect the sound to the spelling directly.
But there's a really important detail here, isn't there? A common mistake people make.
Oh, absolutely critical. You must use English subtitles, not subtitles in your native language.
Why is that so crucial?
Because if the subtitles are in your language, your brain will just take the easy route. It reads the familiar text, translates internally, and basically tunes out the English audio. You might enjoy the show, but you're not really learning the English effectively. English audio with English subtitles forces that connection between sound and text.
That makes sense. And the guide specifically mentions shows like Friends or The Office. Why those kinds of shows?
Well, they're great because they're packed with everyday conversational English. You get natural dialogue, humor, slang, interruptions, phrasal verbs, all the stuff that's common in real speech but maybe less common in textbooks.
So it's like immersing yourself in how people actually talk.
Exactly. You absorb the rhythm, the intonation, even cultural nuances alongside the vocabulary. It's language learning wrapped in entertainment. That idea of immersion leads nicely into Method 8, surrounding yourself with English. Making English part of your environment, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. Yeah, the goal here is to kind of trick your brain into thinking English is just normal, part of the everyday landscape. And the practical steps are surprisingly simple, but effective.
Like what kind of things?
Change your phone's language setting to English, change your computer's OS language, your social media interfaces. Suddenly you're navigating your digital life in English.
Okay.
And then actively seek out English language content creators. Find YouTubers, podcasters, Instagram accounts, whatever, that talk about subjects you already love, but in English.
So if I'm into, say, gardening or astrophysics, I find the English channels or podcasts about those topics.
Exactly. You're learning about gardening or astrophysics, which you enjoy anyway, and the English learning becomes almost a side effect. It happens more passively, more automatically, because English is just the medium for accessing information you already want.
You start seeing English words everywhere, menus, notifications, headlines. It just becomes normal.
Precisely. It lowers the barrier, makes it less like studying and more like just living. And to make that process even more efficient, Method 9 brings in the technology specifically designed for vocabulary, apps. especially those using spaced repetition. Ah, yes, spaced repetition systems, or SRS. This is where technology really gives learners an edge based on solid memory science. You know Herman Ebbinghaus and the forgetting curve?
Vaguely. The idea that we forget things over time unless we review them.
Exactly. And we forget things at a predictable rate. Traditional flashcards, whether paper or simple digital ones, are inefficient because you tend to review words you already know too often, and words you struggle with not often enough.
So what do apps like Quizlet or Anki or Memrise do differently? How does the spaced part work?
They use an algorithm. Based on how quickly and accurately you recall a word, the app calculates the optimal time to show you that word again. It aims for the moment just before you're likely to forget it.
Okay, so it adapts to my personal learning curve for each word.
Perfectly put. If you nail a word instantly, the app might wait several days, then weeks, then months before showing it again. If you struggle, you might see it again in 10 minutes, then an hour, then a day. It forces active recall, the effort of pulling the word from memory right when it's most effective for strengthening that memory trace.
That sounds incredibly efficient. No time wasted on words I already know well.
Exactly. It maximizes retention for the time you invest. You can do a quick, targeted review session waiting for a bus or before bed. It makes learning fit into the gaps in your day. All right, one more in this section focused on media and tools. Method 10, listening to English podcasts and audiobooks. How is this different from watching shows? The focus here is purely auditory. It's fantastic for tuning your ear to the rhythm, the intonation, the stress patterns, the actual music of spoken English. Plus, you're absorbing vocabulary and complex sentence structures naturally.
Again, choosing topics you like is key, I imagine.
Absolutely. Science, history, business, storytelling, whatever holds your interest. But the crucial part is active listening, not just having it on in the background, like noise.
What does active listening involve here?
It means when you hear a new word or an interesting phrase, you pause. You note it down, maybe in your vocabulary notebook app, right on your phone. Try to capture how it sounded, the sentence it was in, and then, importantly, make a mental note or an actual note to try and use it later.
So connecting the listening input to the speaking output goal.
Yes. You're consciously working to turn that passive listening vocabulary into active speaking vocabulary. Consistent listening practice really builds your intuitive feel for the language.
Okay, we've covered getting words in through reading and listening, organizing them, and using tech. Section 4 is all about more hands-on, active methods, engaging more senses, maybe even having some fun. Method 11 is reading aloud and recording yourself. Why read aloud?
This is a powerful multisensory technique. When you read aloud, you're engaging sight, seeing the words, speech, actually forming the sounds of your mouth, which involves the motor cortex, and hearing, listening to your own voice.
3 channels at once.
Right. That creates multiple pathways in your brain associated with that word or phrase. It makes the memory much more robust than just silent reading. You mentioned the motor cortex. Why is that physical act of speaking important? It taps into kinesthetic memory or muscle memory. Your brain registers the physical movements required to pronounce the word correctly, tongue position, airflow, lip shape. It adds a physical dimension to the memory, separate from just the visual or auditory trace. Makes it easier to recall later.
And the recording part. Why record myself? It feels a bit awkward, maybe.
It can feel awkward at first, definitely. But it's an incredibly valuable feedback tool. When you listen back to yourself reading a paragraph or an article, you immediately hear your own pronunciation issues, awkward phrasing, incorrect stress patterns.
Things I might not notice while I'm speaking?
Exactly. You hear the gap between how you think you sound and how you actually sound. It's direct feedback that helps you self-correct and really master not just the meaning of the word, but its delivery. It's great for fluency too. Okay, that makes sense. Now moving from potentially awkward recording to something definitely more fun.
Okay.
Method 12, playing word games. Yes, this is about leveraging fun and challenge. Word games are fantastic because they force you to actively retrieve and manipulate language, but in a low-stakes, enjoyable context. It doesn't feel like studying.
What kind of games are we talking about?
Classic board games like Scrabble are great. They force you to think about letters, spelling, and finding existing words. Crossword puzzles test your vocabulary recall and associations. Newer digital games like Wordle are brilliant for phonological awareness and word structure patterns. Even simpler mobile games like Word Connect or Wordscapes keep you engaged with English letters and words during downtime.
So they're challenging your brain without the pressure of a test.
Precisely. They require rapid recall. thinking creatively with language, and you often encounter new words, incidentally. The key is the reduced affective filter, basically. Less anxiety means your brain is more open to learning. It's learning through play. Love it. Okay, one more in this active section. Method 13, visualization and association. Tapping into the brain's preference for images. Yeah, our brains are just fundamentally better at remembering images, stories, and emotions than abstract facts or definitions. This technique connects a new word directly to a vivid mental picture or a little story. It's especially helpful for visual learners. How does it work in practice? Let's use the example from the material, the word fragile. Okay, so instead of just memorizing the definition easily broken, you create a mini-movie in your head. Picture yourself holding something incredibly delicate, maybe a thin, ornate glass bird. Feel the lightness, imagine the sunlight shining through it. Feel that sense of caution, the fear it might shatter with the slightest wrong move.
You're associating the word with a feeling, a sensory experience.
Exactly. That strong image, maybe linked to the feeling of handle with care, gets hardwired to the word fragile. The more vivid, unusual, or even emotional the image, the better it sticks. It creates a really strong memory hook, much stronger than just the definition alone. All right, we've covered a lot of ground input, processing output, active practice. Section 5 pulls back a bit to look at the bigger picture, long-term strategy, and the right mindset. Because vocabulary building isn't a short sprint, absolutely. Method 14 is a very specific strategy, the word of the day method, aiming for 365 new words a year. It sounds nicely manageable, just one a day. But I have a question here. If I learn one word today, won't I just forget it by tomorrow? Doesn't all that stuff about spaced repetition suggest that just seeing a word once isn't enough? That is a fantastic question, and you're hitting on a critical point. The simple word of the day approach, if all you do is look at the word once, is indeed flawed. It doesn't combat the forgetting curve effectively on its own.
Okay, so how does it work then, according to this framework?
It works only if you integrate it with the other techniques we've discussed, especially active use and review. The word of the day, maybe from an email subscription or a dictionary app, provides the manageable discovery step. Just one new word, so it's not overwhelming. But then comes the crucial application phase.
What's that involve?
You must actively use that word almost immediately. The recommendation is to write a short paragraph or at least a couple of meaningful sentences, using the word correctly in context. So if today's word is, say, ubiquitous, you need to write something like, in the city, yellow taxis are ubiquitous. You see them on every street. That forces you to process its meaning and grammar.
Okay, so use it right away. But what about tomorrow?
And then this is key. That word must go into your system, either into your spaced repetition app, like Anki or Quizlet for scheduled review, or at the very least into your detailed vocabulary notebook for regular manual review. The word of the day sparks the learning, but the active usage and the review system are what actually consolidate it.
Got it. So the 365 words isn't just from passive exposure, it's 365 words actively processed, used, and entered into a review cycle.
Precisely. That way, by the end of the year, you don't just vaguely recognize 365 words, you can actually use 365 new words with confidence because you've wrestled with them, applied them, and revisited them. That's far more valuable. Okay? That clarifies it. And that focus on the long haul leads us perfectly into the final point, method 15. Be patient and stay consistent. The mindset piece. Yes, this is so important and often overlooked. We have to frame vocabulary building as a marathon, not a sprint. Learners get so discouraged when they forget a word they learned last week.
It feels like failure, doesn't it?
It does, but we need to normalize forgetting. Forgetting is actually a natural and even necessary part of the learning process. It's not failure.
Wait, how is forgetting necessary? That sounds backward. Well, think about it. When you successfully recall a word just before you were about to forget it, that struggle, that effort you make to retrieve it, that sends a powerful signal to your brain. This information is important. Strengthen this connection. It's called desirable difficulty. So the effort of remembering actually makes the memory stronger.
Exactly. If recall was always effortless, the brain wouldn't need to work hard to consolidate the memory. So, encountering a word, forgetting it partially, and then successfully retrieving it after a struggle is actually a highly effective way to push it into long-term storage. This often happens during memory consolidation, especially while you sleep.
So the key isn't to never forget, but to keep engaging consistently so you get those retrieval practice opportunities. Precisely. Consistency is king. Keep up the daily habits, Read, listen, try to speak or write using your new words, even if it's just for a short time each day. And crucially, commit to reviewing your notebook or your SRS app regularly, maybe once a week. Dedicate some time to go over recent entries. It's about the cumulative effect over time.
Absolutely. And celebrate the small wins. Don't compare yourself to a native speaker with decades of exposure. Compare yourself to where you were last month. Acknowledge your progress. Those small, consistent steps are what eventually build that impressive vocabulary and lead to real fluency and confidence. #outro.
Wow. Okay, so we've just unpacked 15 really practical, interconnected strategies for seriously boosting your English vocabulary. A whole toolkit, really.
Yeah, from those daily foundational habits like reading interesting stuff and keeping that active notebook,
To leveraging context with chunks and word families, immersing yourself with movies and podcasts, using smart tech like SRS apps.
and engaging actively through reading aloud, playing games, and using visualization covers a lot of angles. The big takeaway for me, threading through all this, seems to be it's about consistent effort and smart strategies, not some magic bullet, progress over perfection.
Absolutely. And it's about making the learning active and contextual, moving beyond just recognizing words to actually owning them, being able to deploy them confidently when you need them. That consistent, varied exposure is the path. So, as a final thought for everyone listening, something to maybe chew on. We've talked about these methods individually, but think about the synergy. If context is so important, like in tip 4 and tip 7, how could you deliberately combine methods for even faster growth? For example, what if you watched a scene from an English documentary with English subtitles?
Okay, getting that dual input.
And then maybe the next day, you find the transcript for that specific scene online, and you practice reading just that scene aloud, maybe even recording yourself, focusing on the new words you picked up.
Oh, that's a powerful combination. You're layering the initial contextual learning from the video with the multisensory reinforcement of reading aloud, sight, sound, motor cortex activation, plus the self-correction from listening back.
Right. You're hitting those words from multiple angles.
Definitely. You're not just learning the word's meaning, you're mastering its sound, its rhythm in a real sentence, your own pronunciation of it. That kind of layered approach could significantly accelerate how quickly and deeply vocabulary sticks. Far more than just doing one thing in isolation. It's about being strategic with your practice.
Something to experiment with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Start small, stay consistent, combine these techniques in ways that work for you. Every word you learn, every connection you make, builds that foundation for a more confident, expressive future in English.
Excellent advice. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep learning, keep growing, and keep speaking confidently.